In this video, we'll solve one of the most recurrent questions about the image of San Juan de Dios. And this is maybe what I thought was the biggest challenge for this image. And I think overall the solution was pretty simple. And it's about how all the fruits were placed in the scenario. At the beginning, I was really scared about this issue because I wasn't really very fond of putting every fruit and every element that would be 1,000 elements or more than 1,000 elements in the scene. When I give it a little thought about this issue, uh, I, uh, I really started to think and to research how I would solve this problem. I remember that some time ago, a couple of years ago, I read a paper from Pixar on how they solved this particular issue on Ratatouille. Well, this paper, as I told you before, I found it on the internet, and it's in fact it's in Pixar's webpage, and mainly it just explained how they solve this process for the movie. At some point while they were making the movie, they realized that if the things didn't look very natural, if they put every single thing by hand. So, as a big company, they started researching and they made a very big research on how they're gonna solve it. And well, they set up a dynamic procedure in which the things uh, just simply they fall the way it would fail in the real world. Well, I have here an already prepared scene in which I made some tests. And well, as I was telling you, the solution is pretty simple. As you can see, I just cloned the fruits, in this case these apples, and I gave it some variation. Some are rotated, some others are a little bit higher, so I can get different levels of chaos in the scene because they'll fall faster than the others. Even though the scene, as you can see, it doesn't have that much variation as you would like to, just because I wanted to show how powerful this process is. As a starter, I made some tests with the solutions that comes within 3D Studio Max. Of course, I'm not pretending this to be a specific course of how I made the solution. In this case, with Ray Fire, I'm simply telling you how I did it. For those who are not familiar with it, Ray Fire it's a plugin for 3D Studio Max, and of course we're not gonna go all the way through it. So it's just the little process I did for solving the problem with putting the fruits in the scene. If you don't have this plugin, I highly recommend that you download it, test it. It's very powerful tool. The main purpose for this plugin is to break things, for make collisions, for breaking stuff. So, but the thing with Rayfire is that it automatizes. It gives you a very automatic way of putting dynamic properties to the objects. And I'm going to show you the process, and it's again very simple. As I told you, I cloned this via instancing, and I'll tell Rayfire which object doesn't have to move. It doesn't matter what happens in the simulation. I made a group, and Rayfire automatically detects how many or the objects that are in that group, and it detects it and allocates it in this group that says it's not going to be moving in the simulation. The next step is to tell Rayfire which objects are going to be involved in the simulation and are moving. Of course, I exclude the box, the containing box, and I add my objects, the apples, in the impact area. As I told you, it's mainly because it's used for fracturing, that the objects, the active objects, go in the impact. Another very important thing to consider is that in the physics part, you have two options. One is reactor, and the other one is physics. So you have to get this component installed in your computer. You can download it from NVIDIA. It's important because if you don't have it installed, it won't appear here in the drop-down menu. It just appear reactor, which is the solution that comes with 3ds Max. Once you have installed physics, all these things will appear in the tool. All these toolbars will appear, but we won't touch it since Rayfire will make the work for us. So we won't be worried about making some complex or strange setup on the objects. Well, as impossible as it seems, that's all that we have to do. All the things that happen next is a matter of physics and Rayfire. We have these two buttons. One of these says make a preview and the other says make a preview and save the animation. So in my case, I'll make a preview and save the animation mainly because I already tested the scene and I know it will work. If at some point you want to make testing, you can do it like moving the objects or putting them in different position. This scene will be included with the tutorial, so you'll feel free to play with it. So this is almost magical. Uh, we'll let you'll see. We'll just let Rayfire make the calculations, and well, this progress bar is calculating. It's making the world, and it will start calculating our fruits. Well, the result is pretty nice. And what Rayfire and Physics creates for us is baked animation. If we select any of the objects, of the objects, you'll see that it has its keyframes in each frame. So the obvious process now is that I deleted all the objects that are outside the box because I didn't want it to have more clones that I needed. And with this process, I got a very interesting and decent placing of the fruits on the boxes. Of course, if I see something strange or something that it's a bit too weird, I can just delete any specific object and keep the what I like the most. And well, that's it. The next step for the scene is I made this as an asset, as of course as a vray proxy. Why I decided to use vray proxy? Because well, mainly having thousands of objects, and you can see the mesh is a bit dense, so I didn't want it to have a lot of elements on the scene actually. And of course, the calculation will be done just on render time, not on viewport. You'll see later on when we see the full scene that this is very important. You don't want to have all that amount of meshes in your viewport. And it's a very good way to plan your scene because your scene can be unusable. You can't even navigate around it. Well, the process for making a vray proxy is also very simple. There are mainly two ways of doing this. On first, you can delete select all the fruits and delete all the keyframes for freezing them on this state. And I'll keep selected all the fruits that are the ones that I really want to make them vray proxies. The process is as simple as making a right click and going to this quad menu that says vray mesh export. This menu will come up and it will ask me where do I want to save the file and what's the name of it. In this case, I tell him that I want that just one file contains all the fruits that I'm selecting. For me, it doesn't have any sense to have one file for each fruit. So I'll choose a temporary folder in my desktop that I'll be calling test manzana, test apple in English, proxy. Inside this folder, I'll name the file, and I'll tell him that creates automatically the proxies for me. And here I can define how many faces we want to see for the proxies. It's a lot of test and error because you can see a preview of it. My recommendation is to use as little as possible because that's exactly what we're looking for, to have a very light scene once we have all the objects in the scene in the viewport. I'll stick to something simple. I'll just type here 1,000 and click OK for export. And now we have the this that it's a cloud of faces that vray creates, and now it's very simple to handle by the machine, very light for the graphic card. And also for the renderer, well, this object, it's already a proxy, and it's very simple for it to handle an object that it already understands. What we are saving, it's the time for when you see that vray is translating stuff. At this point, the geometry is already uh, translated for vray to understand it in its own language. So the next step is to create many of these boxes with the fruits that we already modeled, textured, and put them inside boxes. And put many of these boxes with proxies in the final scene. And this is what we'll be looking at in the next video.